mother stepped inside her house for just a few minutes to grab juice for her 4-year-old daughter, only to return and find nothing but an empty sandbox and an eerie silence that would haunt her for the next 12 years. Every lead was exhausted, yet her world remained stuck in that horrible moment. Then, 12 years later, while looking for painkillers in her husband's shaving kit, she stumbled upon something that would unravel a terrifying truth, one so shocking that even veteran investigators would later describe it as the most disturbing discovery of their careers. The migraine hit Vera Caldwell like a hammer, sharp pain seizing her head and distorting her vision with each beat of her heart. She pressed her hands to her temples, trying to push back the pressure that threatened to crush her skull as she stumbled toward the bathroom. The early morning light pierced her eyes like needles. Her feet found the cold bathroom tile, and she blindly reached for the medicine cabinet, her hands guided by muscle memory. The mirror door creaked as it opened, and she fumbled past the vitamin bottles, Marcus's prescription antacids, and allergy medication. Everything but the ibuprofen she desperately needed. "Damn it, Marcus," she muttered, the words sending waves of pain through her skull. He must have used it up and forgotten to replace it. Again. 20 years of marriage, and he still couldn't remember to stock the basics. She gripped the sink, wondering if she could make it to the kitchen for the backup bottle when she remembered. Marcus always kept a travel pack of painkillers in his shaving kit, a habit from his office days. The brown canvas bag sat on the bathroom counter, just where he'd left it after his shower. She unzipped it, the sound of the zipper too loud in the stillness. She pushed aside his electric razor, still faintly smelling of his aftershave, along with his cologne, shampoo, and dental floss. She dug deeper, searching for the familiar rattle of a pill bottle, but instead her fingers brushed against smooth, unfamiliar packaging. She pulled it out, squinting through the pain in her head to make sense of the words. Plan B, 1 step, emergency contraceptive. The meaning hit her with brutal clarity. Beneath the packaging, 2 blister packs lay, pills visible in their sealed compartments. The migraine was forgotten. Vera stared at the package, her mind racing, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. She flipped it over, reading the instructions and warnings, hoping they would change to something that made sense. But they didn't. Their sex life had practically vanished since Ruby was gone. Neither of them could handle intimacy anymore, not with the weight of their daughter's absence hanging over them. The few times they'd tried, it had ended in tears, with Vera seeing Ruby's face whenever she closed her eyes. A receipt slipped out from beneath the package. She unfolded it with trembling hands. CVS Pharmacy, dated last Tuesday. Marcus had said he was working late that night, something about server maintenance. Vera stood frozen, the package still in her hand as Marcus's footsteps echoed on the stairs. He returned from his morning jog, panting and sweating, his shoes squeaking on the hardwood floor. He walked into the bathroom, still in his running shorts and sweat-stained tank top. His eyes immediately fell on the package in Vera's hands, and his expression shifted from confusion to something darker, more dangerous. "Whose are these?" Vera whispered, her voice barely audible. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Marcus, whose pills are these?" The answer seemed so clear. Another woman, someone younger, someone who could give him what she couldn't anymore. Someone who didn't cry when he touched her, who didn't see their dead daughter's face in every intimate moment. The betrayal sliced through her, but oddly, it was almost a relief to finally have an explanation for the growing distance between them. But Marcus moved faster than she expected. He snatched the package from her hand, his face twisted with rage. "You paranoid bitch," he spat, his voice like venom. "Going through my things? This is what you do while I'm trying to take care of myself?" "I was looking for ibuprofen." "Bullshit." His voice thundered in the small bathroom. "You're always looking for problems, always inventing things to be upset about because you can't accept that she's gone." He jabbed his finger at her face, close enough that she could smell his sweat. "Ruby is dead, Vera. She's been dead for 12 years, and you're so obsessed with it that you're seeing betrayal everywhere." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Vera's knees gave way, and she nearly collapsed. This wasn't the confession she'd expected, the guilty stammering of a man caught in an affair. No, this was pure, raw fury. "You want to know what I think?" Marcus snapped, his face only inches from hers. "I think you're losing your goddamn mind. You see emergency contraception and immediately jump to the conclusion that I'm cheating? Maybe I bought them for a coworker. Maybe they're not even mine. But no, paranoid Vera has to make everything about her, about how I'm betraying her." His voice dropped to a cruel whisper. "Just like you betrayed Ruby by not watching her that day." The words struck her like a slap, tearing through the core of her guilt. His accusation that she was the reason Ruby was gone was the deepest wound he could inflict. It was as if he poured salt directly into the rawest part of her soul. Vera stood motionless as Marcus stormed toward the bedroom. "I've got errands to run," he muttered, yanking open drawers and grabbing clothes with unnecessary force. "Hardware store. Try not to ransack the house while I'm gone." He stormed past her, not even sparing a glance. She reached out to him, her voice weak. "Marcus, please. I just want to understand." He turned on her so quickly that for a second she thought he might hit her. His hand raised, trembling with the fury that burned in his chest. "Understand this," he hissed. "You failed as a mother. You couldn't even keep our daughter safe in our own backyard, and now you're trying to destroy what's left of our marriage because you can't live with yourself." With a final slam of the door, his heavy footsteps echoed down the stairs. The front door slammed shut with a force that rattled the windows, and Vera found herself alone, sinking to the cold bathroom floor, her hands trembling as she pressed them to her face. His words reverberated through her mind, the sting of them worse than any physical blow. Her whole body felt heavy, but beneath the pain, something gnawed at her. She had seen this side of Marcus before. The guilt in his eyes when he'd forgotten their anniversary, the hastily bought flowers from a gas station, the weekend he claimed to be at a work conference, only to find out he had gone fishing with his brother. When caught in those small lies, Marcus would go quiet, offering apologies and promises. But this was different. His rage had been wild, almost desperate, like a cornered animal lashing out. She stood, wiping away the tears, and walked toward his home office. The house felt alien now, the silence so thick it pressed against her chest. The office had always been his domain, where he handled all their finances, where he kept their life organized while she faded into the background, overwhelmed by grief. She hesitated at the door, her hand resting on the knob. This room had never been for her. It was always Marcus's space, the one part of their lives that he controlled. She pushed the door open. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the desk. Everything was in its place, meticulously organized. Marcus's desk was as neat as always, the filing cabinets aligned against the wall, each drawer labeled in his precise handwriting. He could never remember to buy ibuprofen, but his financial records were flawless, like those of a Fortune 500 accountant. Her fingers brushed against the top drawer's handle, and a surge of anxiety filled her chest. Crossing this line felt wrong, like a betrayal of the trust between them. But the pills, the receipt from CVS, his explosive reaction to her questions, it had to mean something. She slid the drawer open. Inside, there were the usual credit card statements, organized by month. The current statement lay on top, detailing mundane purchases, Shell Gas, Kroger, Dunkin' Donuts, all the little things that made up Marcus's routine, until, buried among them, she saw it. CVS Pharmacy Millbrook, $63.19. Millbrook was 45 minutes away. They had 3 pharmacies within 10 minutes of their house. Why drive so far for anything? Her heart raced as she pulled out more statements, spreading them across the desk like a secret waiting to be uncovered. The Millbrook charges were there again, reappearing like a pattern she couldn't ignore. Some months, the charges were small, $47, $82, $55. Other months, they were more substantial, $144. She grabbed a pencil and circled each Millbrook charge. The pattern was unmistakable. Repeated charges from the same pharmacy, month after month. Far too much money for just contraceptives. There was something else there, something deeper, something she wasn't ready to face. Then, as if that wasn't enough, she found another one. Target in Millbrook, 127.34. The pieces were slowly falling into place, but the bigger picture remained blurred, just out of reach. Kroger in Millbrook, 89.91. Always that same town, always large amounts. Vera started reading the itemized charges, her fingers trembling as she traced the familiar items listed. Women's deodorant, the kind teenagers liked, feminine hygiene products, bottles of the fruity shampoo Ruby had begged for when she was younger, the strawberry-scented kind, children's vitamins, more Plan B pills purchased regularly. Her mind raced with possibilities, a mistress with a child, a secret family he had maintained for years. It would explain the products, the faraway location to avoid recognition, and his furious defensiveness this morning. But then, the time frame troubled her. These charges dated back at least 3 years, long before their marriage began to crack. Marcus's locked drawer had always been forbidden territory, a place for important documents, tax records that needed to be kept in order. She had respected his need for private space, just as he had respected her craft room. But now, the key was exactly where she expected it, taped beneath the desktop calendar. Marcus was predictable in his habits, secure in the belief that she would never violate his trust. The tape came off easily, and the small key warmed in her hand. She slid open the drawer, revealing hanging files neatly organized by year. She moved past old tax returns, those joint returns she had signed without reading, trusting Marcus to handle everything correctly. Behind their passports and marriage certificate, she found a manila folder that didn't match the others. No label, no year. Inside were utility bills, electric, water, gas, all for 1847 Elm Street in Millbrook. The bills suggested full-time occupancy. Someone was living there, using power, running water, heating the space. The bills dated back years. Vera's phone came out instinctively, camera clicking as she documented everything. Credit card statements, utility bills, the pharmacy charges circled in pencil, evidence of something she didn't yet understand, but every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. A secret rental property should require tax disclosures and documentation. This was something else, something Marcus had kept hidden completely. Combined with the pharmacy purchases, the feminine products, the Plan B pills, a horrifying picture began to form that made her stomach churn. She replaced everything exactly as she had found it, even retaping the key beneath the calendar. Marcus's Saturday errands usually took hours. Hardware store, car wash, sometimes 9 holes of golf with his buddies. She had time to drive to Millbrook and see this address for herself. Whatever Marcus was hiding at 1847 Elm Street, she was going to find it. The GPS showed 43 minutes to Millbrook, a straight shot down Highway 72 before turning onto smaller state routes. Vera gripped the steering wheel of her Honda, her knuckles white as she watched the familiar suburbs give way to scattered gas stations and empty fields. She'd made this drive years ago, when Ruby was 2 and they had gone apple picking at an orchard past Millbrook. Marcus had complained the whole way about the distance, insisting there were perfectly good orchards closer to home. Now, she understood why he knew the area so well. The CVS appeared first, anchoring a tired strip mall between a nail salon and a Chinese takeout place. Nothing special about it. Faded red letters, automatic doors, sale banners hanging in the windows. But this was where Marcus had bought those pills. This was the place he'd been visiting for years. Vera slowed but didn't stop, following her phone's directions deeper into Millbrook. The neighborhoods deteriorated as she drove. Well-maintained houses gave way to smaller homes with chain-link fences and cars up on blocks and driveways. Elm Street was near the edge of town, where the residential area gave way to industrial lots and woods. Her GPS announced the final turn onto a road that hadn't seen fresh asphalt in decades. The street was a minefield of potholes, forcing her to slow to a crawl. Houses sat far apart, separated by overgrown lots and the occasional abandoned car. Some showed signs of life, laundry on lines, toys in yards, while others were empty, windows dark, grass growing wild. The numbers on the mailboxes were hard to read. Some were tilted, some missing altogether. 810 Elm Street was at the road's dead end, nestled up against a tangle of woods. Vera's first thought was that it looked sick and forgotten. The small ranch house, probably built in the 60s, judging by the low roofline and narrow windows, seemed to shrink into itself. Yellow siding had faded to the color of old bones. The front porch sagged in the middle like a frown, but it was the windows that made her skin crawl. Every single one was covered. Heavy curtains in some, what looked like newspapers taped to others. No hint of life beyond the glass. The yard told two different stories. Weeds had overtaken what might once have been flower beds, growing waist-high in places. A rusty mailbox leaned at the curb. No name, no number, but the driveway, Vera's gaze fixed on it. Fresh tire tracks cut through the gravel, multiple sets overlapping. Oil stains darkened the concrete near the closed garage door, the kind left by a vehicle parked in the same spot repeatedly. Someone was coming here often. Vera parked her Honda 3 houses down, tucking it behind an abandoned pickup truck that offered some cover. She turned off the engine and sat there, observing, cataloging every detail. A new padlock gleamed bright brass on the chain-link gate, standing out against the rust of the fence. There were no newspapers in the driveway, no overflowing mail. The roof seemed intact, no missing shingles or obvious damage. Everything was well maintained, but it felt hidden, like a paradox that made her stomach tighten. Were those security cameras under the eaves? She couldn't tell from this distance, but something about the house felt too watchful, as if it were waiting. Then movement caught her eye. A slow, elderly woman in a housecoat, walking a small terrier along the cracked sidewalk. Vera seized the opportunity, lowering her window as the woman approached. "Excuse me?" Vera called out with a friendly smile. "Sorry to bother you. I'm looking at properties in the area. My husband and I are thinking of moving. Do you know much about the neighborhood?" The woman's face brightened at the chance to talk. She shuffled closer, her dog sniffing at Vera's tires. "Oh, honey, I've lived here 42 years. Used to be a nice area, very quiet." "Still is, mostly," she said, her gaze flicking toward 1847 Elm Street. "You're not thinking of that one, are you? Is there something wrong with it?" The woman lowered her voice, as if the house might hear. "Strange place," she whispered. "Man comes and goes at all hours, mostly at night. Drives a big, dark pickup truck. Been doing it for years now." Vera's heart raced. "Have you ever talked to him?" she asked. The woman shook her head. "Tried once when he first started coming around. Wanted to be neighborly, you know. But he just stared at me until I went back inside. Never said a word. Made me feel..." She shivered despite the warm afternoon. Something's off about him. Always alone, always locking up careful-like. "When did he start coming here?" The woman paused, her dog tugging at the leash. "The property changed hands maybe 14, 15 years ago. Some foreign investor, never saw him. The night visitors started showing up soon after. I called the city about the yard a few times, but nothing ever happened." Vera leaned in. "Just the yard bothering you?" The woman glanced again at 1847, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Sometimes I hear things late at night, machinery running, like construction equipment. But in the morning, nothing looks different. And once, I was walking Muffin here, late, maybe midnight. You know how it is with a weak bladder, she smiled softly. And I saw his truck there. Got curious. Tried to peek over the fence. What did you see? Vera asked, her pulse quickening. Nothing. But he must have seen me, because suddenly he was at the gate, just standing there in the dark. Didn't say anything, didn't move, just stared until I hurried home. I don't walk past there at night anymore. Vera's phone rang, cutting the tension. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. She quickly apologized to the woman, who continued on her walk, casting one more wary glance at 1847. Where are you? Marcus's voice was tight, controlled, the fury from this morning now colder, sharper. Grocery store, Vera lied smoothly, surprised by how natural it came. Picking up things for dinner. Which store? Too quick, she thought. The Kroger on Madison. Silence hung for a beat. She could hear Marcus's breathing, feel him checking her words for cracks. I came home for my wallet, he said finally. Forgot it this morning. Oh, well, I should be back soon. Good. We need to talk about this morning. The threat was subtle but clear. I'll be home by 3. Okay, Vera. His voice dropped low, almost a warning. Come straight home. The line went dead. Vera glanced at the clock. 1:47 p.m. She had time. If she left now, she could make it back before him, maintain the lie. But her gaze drifted back to 1847 Elm Street. Its covered windows and secretive air gnawed at her. She snapped a few quick pictures. The house, the fresh tire tracks, the padlock. Evidence of something she wasn't sure of yet. But her gut told her it was wrong. Something Marcus had been hiding. With one last reluctant glance, she drove away, leaving the house to its secrets. For now. Back home, she had just enough time to grab the groceries from Kroger and carry them inside, pretending the routine was normal. Milk, bread, Marcus's coffee, the mundane items that backed up her lie. But the house felt different now, like a dark cloud had settled over it. She had maybe an hour before Marcus returned. His Saturday errands were predictable. Hardware store for some random project, car wash even though the truck wasn't dirty, maybe a stop at Home Depot. It was always the same, always hours of absence. And now, it seemed, so was this secret. Back in Marcus's office, Vera moved with a purpose. The filing cabinets held decades of their shared life, every document Marcus had deemed important. She skipped over the recent years, her fingers instinctively drawn deeper into the past. Behind tax returns from 2008, 2009, and 2010, she found a folder that felt different, older. The manila was worn soft at the edges. It was labeled Power of Attorney, dated 14 years ago, witnessed and notarized. The document granted Marcus full control of his younger brother David's assets and properties. The legal jargon was dense, but the meaning was clear. Marcus could act in David's stead for all financial matters. A flood of memories rushed back. David at their dining room table, excited about a new business venture in Thailand. Some import-export opportunity, a chance to make real money. He'd been 35 then, still chasing dreams, while Marcus had already settled into family life. Just need someone to watch the rental properties, David had said, sliding papers across to Marcus. Collect rent, handle repairs. A few months, maybe a year. Vera had teased him about finding a Thai bride while their 4-year-old Ruby colored at the table, her little tongue poking out in concentration. David had laughed, ruffled Ruby's hair, and promised to bring her back a princess dress from Bangkok. 2 houses to manage, Marcus had said. Nothing complicated. They'd collected rent for a while, checks arriving monthly that Marcus deposited into a separate account. Then Marcus had told her David wanted to sell, easier than managing properties from overseas. The properties were gone by the following year, or so she'd believed. But Elm Street, the broken-down ranch house with its covered windows, must have been one of them. The timeline made her stomach churn. David had left 2 years before Ruby vanished. 2 years. The elderly neighbor had said the night visits started soon after the property changed hands. All those years of Marcus coming and going, and she'd never questioned it. Vera pulled Ruby's baby book from the shelf, the faded pink cover with its embossed teddy bears causing tears to sting her eyes. Inside, Ruby's life was carefully documented: first smile, first tooth, first steps. But the pages after age 4 were blank, waiting for milestones that never came. The last photos were from Ruby's 4th birthday party, their backyard transformed with streamers and balloons, a dozen preschoolers shrieking with joy, Ruby's face covered in chocolate frosting, her gap-toothed grin wide as she blew out the candles, Marcus beside her, helping with the wish. Then, the final picture, the last one taken the day before, Ruby disappeared. Vera traced the image with her finger. Ruby was in the sandbox Marcus had built that spring, wearing her favorite pink shirt with the butterfly print. Her blonde hair caught the afternoon sun like spun gold. Ruby was looking up at Vera, smiling with such trust and perfect happiness, safe in her own backyard, safe with her parents just inside. Vera forced herself to focus on Marcus in the photos. His smile had reached his eyes back then, seemed genuine. The proud father, the devoted husband. But now, knowing about Elm Street and the night visits that started years before Ruby vanished, that smile looked different. It seemed calculating, patient. Her mind recoiled against the growing suspicion. It was impossible, obscene, but the pieces were falling together with horrible precision. She found their 2012 calendar in the memory box, preserved because it held Ruby's last scheduled playdate, her final swimming lesson. Marcus's work schedule was marked in his neat handwriting. Day shifts only at the IT firm. Regular hours. Home by 6 every evening. The promotion to systems administrator hadn't come yet. But after Ruby disappeared, Vera flipped forward through the weeks. The frantic first days were unmarked, the time when days had no meaning. Then, 2 weeks after Ruby vanished, when the FBI scaled back their search and the volunteers left, Marcus's schedule changed. Night shifts started appearing. System maintenance, he'd explained. Servers that could only be updated when the office was empty. The promotion had required it, he said, and it came with a raise they desperately needed for the private investigator. Vera had been too shattered to question it, even grateful that Marcus could function enough to work while she could barely leave Ruby's room. Back in the filing cabinet, Vera dug deeper into the power of attorney folder. More documents, transfers she'd never seen, properties moving from David's name to something called DMC Holdings LLC. The signatures were Marcus's, perfectly legal with the power of attorney. A web search on her phone revealed that DMC Holdings had been dissolved in 2015. No forwarding information, no assets listed, but Elm Street remained somehow off the city's books. Taxes were paid from a phantom account existing in a legal gray zone that allowed a man to visit at night for years without raising questions. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, on my way home. 15 minutes. Vera's hands moved quickly, photographing the power of attorney, the property transfers, the calendar pages. Evidence of something monstrous taking shape in her mind, but still too terrible to fully acknowledge. She returned everything exactly as she'd found it, closed the filing cabinet with a soft click. In the kitchen, she busied herself unpacking groceries. Each ordinary item, eggs, juice, cereal, felt surreal against the horror building in her chest. The house felt like a crime scene now, every room holding the weight of secrets, evidence of something unspeakable lurking just beneath the surface. When Marcus's truck rumbled into the driveway, Vera was ready. Groceries put away, coffee brewing, a wife returning from errands. Everything appeared normal, except for the knowledge burning through her mind like acid. Her husband had kept his brother's property secret for 14 years, visiting it at night, buying supplies for girls and emergency contraception. The facts pointed to one impossible conclusion, but her heart couldn't accept it. Not yet. not until she knew what lay behind those covered windows on Elm Street. Vera heard the rumble of Marcus's truck as it pulled into the driveway. The familiar sound now felt sinister, tainted by the new knowledge. Her mind raced through options. She needed to get back to Elm Street tonight. She needed to see what was behind those covered windows. But first, she had to survive whatever came next with Marcus. On impulse, she positioned herself at the bottom of the stairs, gripping the banister. As his key turned in the lock, she let out a sharp cry of pain. "Marcus, thank God you're home. Can you help me?" He appeared in the doorway, filling it with his broad shoulders. Something was different about him. He'd changed clothes since this morning's explosive exit. The striped tank top was gone, replaced by a clean polo shirt. Fresh cologne couldn't quite mask the sharp scent of sweat underneath. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes moved over her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "What happened?" His voice was flat, devoid of warmth, just a sharp inquiry. "I twisted my ankle, carrying the groceries in. I think it might be sprained." She shifted her weight, wincing for effect. Marcus approached slowly, each step measured. But he wasn't looking at her ankle. His gaze stayed fixed on her face, studying her features like he was reading a map, looking for lies. "Which ankle?" His question came out sharp. "The left one. I missed the step from the garage." His hands were surprisingly gentle as he helped her to the living room couch, supporting her weight with practiced ease. But the gentleness felt performative, like an actor hitting his marks. Once she was settled, he knelt beside her, his fingers probing her ankle through her sock. "Here," he pressed against the joint. "What about here?" She winced on cue, playing up the pain. His touch was clinical, methodical. "How exactly did you fall? Show me the position." My foot turned wrong. Does it matter?" "Everything matters." His eyes bored into hers. "Which grocery store did you go to? The receipt should have a timestamp." "Kroger on Madison. Like I told you on the phone." His fingers continued their examination. "Did anyone see you fall? Maybe offer to help?" The questions felt like a test, each one probing for inconsistencies. She kept her answers simple, plausible. "Yes, my ankle hurts. No one saw me fall. Yes, I'd put the groceries away before sitting down. I'll get you some ice," he said finally, rising to his feet. As he went into the kitchen, Vera's eyes drifted to the entry table. His keys lay in their usual spot, but the ring looked different, heavier. Along with the familiar house, truck, and office keys, she counted at least 3 she didn't recognize. One was brass, expensive looking, from the same high-security brand as the padlock she'd seen on Elm Street's gate. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Diane. Surprise, 20 minutes out, bringing wine and need girl talk. Marcus better not hog you. Vera's heart sank. The last thing she needed was Diane's chaotic energy complicating an already dangerous situation, but canceling would raise questions, especially if Marcus saw the text. He returned with ice wrapped in a dish towel, kneeling again to apply it to her ankle. This close, she could see details she'd missed before. Fresh scratches across his knuckles, the kind that came from branches or fingernails. One was deep enough to have bled recently. "What happened to your hands?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He glanced down, seeming surprised. "Oh, had to help clear some brush at the hardware store loading dock. New delivery got hung up on some overgrown trees." The lie came so easily, so naturally. How many other lies had she missed over the years? Marcus settled beside her on the couch, closer than necessary, his arms stretched across the back cushions, not quite touching her, but marking territory. "We should talk about this morning." "Marcus, No, let me finish." His voice had shifted to something reasonable, almost caring, the voice he used when he wanted something. "I've been thinking during my errands. Maybe you were right to be concerned. Not about what you think," he added quickly, "but about us, our communication. Maybe we should try counseling again. The suggestion was so unexpected, so normal, that for a moment Vera doubted everything she'd discovered. Then she saw his eyes, still watchful, still calculating. This was performance, not contrition. I know I was harsh this morning, he continued. I said things I shouldn't have about Ruby, about you as a mother. That was cruel. She made herself nod, playing along. We both said things. His hand dropped to her shoulder, squeezing gently. Too gently, like he was reminding himself not to squeeze harder. We should work on us, Marcus said, his tone smooth, almost rehearsed. But first, I might need to head to the office tonight. Server issue that can't wait until Monday. There it was, the excuse she'd been expecting. His reason to slip away to Elm Street after dark, just like the neighbor had described. The lie flowed easily, practiced and smooth, a mask he wore too well. Before she could respond, the front door burst open. Diane swept in without knocking, as usual, carrying a bottle of wine and an oversized charcuterie board. Surprise, sis. Hope you're not... Her eyes landed on Vera's elevated foot and the ice pack. Oh, what happened? Just a twisted ankle, Vera said, keeping her voice light. Nothing serious. Diane immediately shifted into nurse mode, despite having no medical training beyond WebMD. She dumped her offerings onto the coffee table and began examining Vera's ankle with an enthusiasm that made Marcus step back. You need to be more careful, Diane chattered, oblivious to the tension hanging thick in the room. Oh, Marcus, good you're here. You'll never guess what I saw driving over. She laughed, already pouring wine. That creepy abandoned house on Elm, the yellow one that looks like it should be condemned. I swear I saw your truck there earlier. You flipping houses now without telling us? The temperature in the room dropped like a stone. Marcus went very still. His recovery was swift, almost impressive. The stillness lasted barely 2 seconds before he chuckled, shaking his head with practiced amusement. Diane, there must be 50 dark pickup trucks in this town. Half of them probably have veteran stickers. His voice carried the exact note of casual dismissal, but Vera caught the micro-expressions, the tightening around his eyes, the subtle flare of his nostrils, the brief clench of his jaw before the easy smile slid back into place. I don't know, Diane said, pouring herself more wine. It looked exactly like yours, same chrome running boards and everything. Lots of trucks have those. Marcus stood abruptly, moving toward Vera. I should check your ankle properly. Make sure it's not worse than we thought. Let me help you upstairs to rest. I'm fine here. No, you need to elevate it properly. His hand closed around her upper arm, firm enough to brook no argument. Doctor's orders, remember, from when I sprained mine last year. Vera didn't remember him spraining anything last year, but his fingers were already pulling her up. The grip wasn't painful, but it communicated clearly. She was coming with him whether she wanted to or not. Oh, don't be such a mother hen, Marcus. Diane laughed, still oblivious to the undercurrents. She's fine on the couch. Besides, I just got here. She took another sip of wine, settling deeper into her chair. So, tell me about this house thing. You know, I drove past twice because my GPS went crazy, kept trying to route me through some closed road. But yeah, second time I definitely saw your truck. Recognize the veteran sticker? The one with the flag that Ruby picked out, remember? Marcus's fingers tightened involuntarily on Vera's arm. Ruby's name in Diane's mouth seemed to physically pain him. You must be confused, Marcus said quickly. But the dismissal came too sharp, too fast, unlike the Marcus who usually humored Diane's stories, who played the patient brother-in-law. Maybe you should head home before traffic gets bad. You know how 495 gets on Saturdays. Diane blinked at the abrupt suggestion. It's barely 4A. Still, Marcus pressed, Vera needs rest, and you should leave now. No rush here, Diane said deliberately, pouring herself more wine. So, Marcus, this co-worker of yours who's interested in real estate, Anyone I know? Maybe I can give them some tips. You know, I helped the Johnsons when they bought that flip. Marcus's explanation came out tangled, far too detailed, and yet making no sense. Tom from accounting, or was it Tim from systems? Looking for investment properties, or maybe a fixer-upper to live in? The story shifted with each sentence. Technical real estate terms jumbled with IT jargon. Vera noticed the scratches on his hands as he gestured, one still oozing fresh blood that he absently wiped on his jeans. Unable to stand it any longer, Vera escaped to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone, dialing 911 with fumbling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? Please, she whispered, turning on the faucet to mask her voice. I think my husband is holding someone captive at a house at 1847 Elm Street in Millbrook. You need to send someone now. Ma'am, can you speak up? Are you in immediate danger? I think he might have our daughter there. She disappeared 12 years ago when she was 4. The line went quiet for a beat. Then the operator responded, but Vera was already lost in the flood of terrible realizations. Ruby Caldwell, please check your records. He's been going to this house for years, buying girls' supplies, Plan B pills. Ma'am, that's a very serious accusation. What evidence do you have? The words spilled out in a rush. Property records, credit card statements, the neighbor's testimony about night visits. Even to her own ears, it sounded fragmented, the paranoid ramblings of a grieving mother. We can send a patrol car to check the property, the operator replied, professional but skeptical, but without concrete evidence of a crime in progress. A sharp knock rattled the bathroom door. Vera? Everything okay in there? Marcus's voice was too close, as if he'd been listening. Fine. Just a minute. Vera flushed the toilet, ran water in the sink to mask her voice, and whispered into the phone, Please, just check. 1847 Elm Street. Please. She ended the call, splashing water on her face before opening the door. Marcus stood inches away, close enough that she had to press against the door frame to avoid touching him. His eyes searched her face with an intensity that made her skin crawl. You were in there a while. His voice was flat, sharp, stomach's upset, must be stress from the ankle. His gaze dropped to her hands, steady now, then back to her face. Who were you talking to? What? No one. I wasn't. I heard voices. His tone remained conversational, but his body blocked her exit. Was it on the phone? From the living room, Diane's voice rang out cheerfully. I'm ordering pizza. What does everyone want? Marcus froze, but Vera, sensing the moment slipping from her grasp, replied quickly, I'm fine here. No, you need to elevate it properly. His hand found her upper arm, his touch firm enough to brook no argument. Doctor's orders, remember? From when I sprained mine last year. She didn't remember him spraining anything last year, but his fingers were already pulling her up. The grip wasn't painful, but it made it clear. She was coming with him, whether she wanted to or not. Oh, don't be such a mother hen, Marcus, Diane laughed, still oblivious. She's fine on the couch. Besides, I just got here. She took another sip of wine, settling deeper into her chair. So, tell me about this house thing. You know, I drove past twice because my GPS went crazy. Kept trying to route me through some closed road. But yeah, second time, I definitely saw your truck. Recognize the veteran sticker? The one with the flag that Ruby picked out. Remember? Marcus's fingers tightened involuntarily on Vera's arm. Ruby's name on Diane's lips seemed to physically pain him. You must be confused, Marcus said quickly, but the dismissal came too sharp, too fast, unlike the Marcus who usually humored Diane's stories, who played the patient brother-in-law. Maybe you should head home before traffic gets bad. You know how 495 gets on Saturdays. Diane blinked at the abrupt suggestion. It's barely 4. Still, Marcus pressed, his voice hardening. Vera needs rest, and you should leave now. No rush here, Diane said deliberately. pouring more wine. So, Marcus, this co-worker of yours, who's interested in real estate, anyone I know? Maybe I can give them some tips. You know, I helped the Johnsons when they bought that flip. Marcus's explanation was a tangled mess, details that shifted and changed. Tom from accounting, or was it Tim from systems? Looking for investment properties, or maybe a fixer-upper to live in? He stumbled over technical terms, confusing servers with databases, Linux commands with Windows protocols. Diane's eyebrows raised with each mistake. "That doesn't sound right," she said slowly. "Are you sure you—" Marcus's phone buzzed. He grabbed it quickly, too quickly, turning the screen away as he typed. His jaw tightened, fingers flying over the keyboard with urgency. Texting someone, warning someone. The horrific possibility crashed over Vera like ice water. If Ruby was alive, if she was at that house, was Marcus telling her to hide? To stay quiet when the police came? Her daughter might be 45 minutes away, might have been that close for 12 years, and Marcus was warning her that Mommy was getting too close to the truth. Vera stood abruptly, the room spinning. "I need some air." Marcus rose with her, inevitable as gravity. His hand found her elbow, steadying her, or was it restraining her? She couldn't tell which anymore. "You should rest," he said. "You're not looking well." Behind them, Diane set down her wine glass with a sharp click. "Okay, what the hell is going on here?" Vera swayed dramatically, letting her knees buckle just enough to sell the performance. The ankle she'd supposedly twisted suddenly couldn't bear her weight. Diane jumped from her chair, wine sloshing, reaching out to steady her sister. "Whoa, careful!" In that moment of choreographed chaos, Vera's hand shot out toward the entry table. Her fingers closed around Marcus's keys, the heavy ring with its collection of familiar and unfamiliar brass. The metal was warm, as if it had absorbed his body heat. Marcus moved faster than she'd ever seen him move, his hand clamped around her wrist like a vice, all pretense evaporating in an instant. The caring husband, the concerned partner. That mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. "Give them back," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Now!" His fingers ground into the delicate bones of her wrist, hard enough to leave bruises, hard enough to make her gasp. "Marcus, what the hell?" Diane tried to wedge herself between them, but Marcus shoved her aside. Not gently. "The keys, Vera. Now." Let go of her. Diane recovered her balance, phone already in hand. "I'm calling the police." Seconds stretched like pulled taffy. Vera could see Marcus calculating, his eyes darting between her face, the keys, Diane's phone. She watched him decide, saw the moment he realized he'd revealed too much, gone too far. His grip loosened fractionally. It was enough. Vera wrenched free and ran. Behind her, Diane's scream mixed with Marcus's roar of fury. Her supposedly injured ankle worked perfectly as she sprinted through the front door, across the lawn. The keys were clutched so tightly in her palm they cut into her skin. Marcus's truck sat in the driveway like a waiting accomplice. She didn't look back, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life just as Marcus burst from the house. In the rearview mirror, she saw him racing toward Diane's Honda, saw her sister trying to block his path, saw him shove her aside again. The truck tires squealed as Vera reversed wildly, clipping the mailbox. Then she was accelerating down their quiet suburban street, the speedometer climbing past every legal limit. Her phone was already at her ear, dialing 911 with one shaking hand while the other wrestled the wheel. "The house on Elm Street, 1847. Elm and Millbrook. My daughter is there, Ruby Caldwell. She's been there for 12 years. My husband has her. Please, you have to send everyone." "Ma'am, is this the same?" "Yes!" Vera screamed into the phone, blowing through a red light. "Same caller, same address, but I'm going there now. He's coming too. He's right behind me. She's in the basement." "I know she is." "Units are en route, ma'am, but you need to wait." Vera threw the phone onto the passenger seat. 43 minutes in normal traffic. But normal was for people whose daughters hadn't been stolen, hadn't been kept like prisoners for over a decade. She knew Marcus's shortcuts. He'd driven them enough times, thinking she wasn't paying attention. But she knew the back roads too, the ways around construction zones and traffic lights. 25 minutes, that's all it took. Driving like death itself was chasing her. Maybe it was. Elm Street materialized in the growing dusk, the sick house squatting at its end. The brass padlock gleamed on the gate, but Vera didn't slow down. The truck smashed through in an explosion of metal and chain link, the gate wrapping around the front bumper with a shriek. She kept going, ramming into the front porch steps before killing the engine. The reinforced front door might as well have been made of paper. Adrenaline gave her superhuman strength. When it wouldn't yield to her shoulder, she grabbed a garden spade from the overgrown yard, its handle rough with rust and neglect. The front window shattered under her assault, safety glass cascading inward. "Ruby!" she screamed through the broken window. "Ruby, it's Mommy!" She cleared the glass with the spade and climbed through, dropping into a living room that looked disturbingly normal. Dated furniture, clean surfaces, a TV from the early 2000s, like a time capsule. But the industrial deadbolts on every interior door told a different story. She moved on instinct, finding a space that should have been ordinary, but felt like a facade. Everything too clean, too organized. And there, a door that should have led to a pantry, but sported 3 heavy deadbolts, all engaged. From below, muffled by walls and distance, she heard movement. A voice, young and terrified. "Daddy." The world tilted. Vera's hands shook as she attacked the locks, but they were designed to keep people in, not out. She needed the keys. Marcus's keys. She still had them, clutched so tight, her fingers had gone numb. The brass key slid home, tumblers clicking open one by one. The door swung inward, revealing stairs descending into darkness. A basement that felt wrong, that shouldn't exist beneath this ordinary house. The smell hit her. Industrial cleaner over something else, something human and desperate. "Dad, I was good. I didn't make noise." That voice, higher than she remembered, but with the same cadence, the same slight lisp on the S sounds. Vera flew down the stairs, finding another door at the bottom, this one with a small, reinforced window. A face appeared in that window, and Vera's knees nearly buckled. 16 years old, blonde hair grown long and tangled, pale as paper from years without sun. But the eyes, those green eyes she'd counted the lashes on when Ruby was a baby, those were the same. Ruby. Oh God. "Ruby, it's Mommy. I'm here to take you home." The girl, because she was a girl now, not the toddler stolen from their backyard, shrank back from the door. Fear twisted her features, the kind of bone-deep terror that came from years of conditioning. "I don't know you. Where's Daddy?" "He said no one was allowed down here. I've been good. I promise I've been good." Vera's heart shattered. She attacked the door with the spade, wood splintering under her assault. Behind the door, Ruby cowered in the corner, hands over her ears, keening like a wounded animal. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Marcus, breathing hard, his face twisted with rage and something else, possessiveness. "You don't understand," he panted, reaching for her. "She's sick. She needs special care. I protected her from the world, from people who would hurt her. You stole her." Vera swung the spade in a wide arc, catching him across the temple. "You stole our baby." He staggered but didn't fall, blood running down his face. "She's mine. I saved her. I kept her safe." His hands reached for her throat, but sirens were screaming outside now. Police voices, boots on floorboards above. Marcus froze, glancing between Vera and the door where Ruby huddled, and Vera saw him make one last calculation. "Ruby, remember what Daddy taught you," he called out, his voice sharp, forcing a last command. "Remember our lessons." Then the police were there, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus dropped to his knees, his hands behind his head, but his eyes never left the door, never left his prisoner. They had to cut the door open. Inside, they found 12 years of horror disguised as care. A small bed with restraints, a chemical toilet, textbooks for homeschooling progressing from kindergarten through high school, bottles of pills, sedatives, antipsychotics, birth control. There are Plan B packages used and discarded, and Ruby, alive but shattered, asking why they were hurting her daddy, begging them to let him go, promising she'd been good. She hadn't tried to leave, even when the door was open, because after 12 years, she had forgotten there was anywhere else to go. The psychiatric wing of Millbrook General Hospital felt like another world. Sterile white walls, locked doors with reinforced glass, the distant sound of someone crying. Vera stood at the observation window, her hands pressed against the cold surface, watching the stranger who was her daughter. Ruby sat on the narrow bed, knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around them. She rocked in a rhythm that seemed both soothing and desperate, still wearing the same clothes they'd found her in. Faded, washed-out t-shirt, sweatpants that didn't quite reach her ankles anymore. Someone had tried to brush her tangled blonde hair, but she'd fought them off. She wouldn't let any of the female staff near her. Dr. Patel, the trauma specialist, said softly beside Vera. Only male officers and doctors. She keeps asking when her father is coming to take her home, asking if she's in trouble for talking to strangers, meaning you and the police. Vera's throat constricted. She called him Daddy. Even when she was terrified, she still called for him. Stockholm Syndrome in its most extreme form, Dr. Patel continued, choosing her words carefully. Combined with 12 years of conditioning, isolation, she paused, her voice softening. Complete psychological control. In her mind, Marcus isn't her captor. He's her protector, her whole world. We're the threat. Detective Morrison approached, holding a tablet. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes that had seen too much. Mrs. Caldwell, I need to show you some things we found. It's difficult, but it might help you understand what Ruby's been through. They moved to a small conference room. The detective pulled up images on the tablet. Not the worst ones, she assured quickly. Just evidence they needed to discuss. A locked room on the second floor of the Elm Street house had yielded hundreds of photographs. Children at playgrounds, schools, public pools, all taken from a distance, all focusing on girls between the ages of 3 and 6. Some of these go back 20 years, Morrison said quietly. Long before Ruby was born. We've checked. No other missing children match these photos. Your daughter appears to have been his only victim. But Vera's stomach churned. But he was planning, waiting. His own daughter was the easiest target, already in his house, already trusting him. Morrison swiped to another screen. We found journals, detailed accounts starting when Ruby was 2. He was already grooming her, teaching her that his attention was special, that secrets were normal. By the time he took her, she'd been programmed to accept it. The Plan B pills finally made their horrifying sense. Morrison explained it clinically, but the reality was monstrous. Ruby started menstruating at 11. Marcus couldn't risk pregnancy exposing his secret, so the monthly pharmacy trips began. He maintained her physical health meticulously, vitamins, regular meals, even exercise equipment in the basement, keeping his victim healthy while destroying her mind. He taught her himself, Morrison continued. We found textbooks, completed worksheets dating back years. She can read at a high school level, knows algebra, has beautiful handwriting, but she's never seen the ocean, never been to a movie, never had a friend. He convinced her the outside world was full of people who would hurt her, that only he could keep her safe. Through the conference room window, Vera could see uniformed officers leading Marcus down the hallway, shackled, wearing orange, but walking with his head high. He saw her watching and smiled, actually smiled, like they were sharing a secret. His interrogation was brutal, no remorse. He insists he loves her, that he protected her from a harsh world. He's described in detail how he drugged her juice that day, carried her to his truck while you were napping. The basement was already finished. He'd spent months soundproofing it, installing locks. He's the one who called 911 to report her missing, played the devastated father so perfectly that no one suspected. The night shifts, all those years of Marcus leaving after dinner, claiming server maintenance that couldn't wait. He'd spent hours in that basement, then come home and slid into bed beside Vera like nothing had happened. The violation of it, the act of sleeping next to him, eating breakfast with him, grieving with him, all while he knew exactly where Ruby was, made her stomach churn. It made her want to scream. "There's more," Morrison said gently, drawing Vera's attention back. She gestured to a safety deposit box containing USB drives, photos, videos, enough to ensure he never walks free. I won't describe them, but you should know they exist. For the trial, David had been contacted in Thailand. Marcus's brother, horrified, had flown back immediately. He'd trusted Marcus completely, signed the power of attorney documents without reading them, never imagining they would be used to hide a kidnapped child. The legal complexities would take years to untangle, but David had already hired lawyers to transfer everything to Vera and help however he could. "Can I see her?" Vera asked, her voice cracking. "Can I try?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "We can try, but please understand, she doesn't remember you. She was 4 when she was taken. In her mind, her mother is dead. Marcus told her you went to heaven, that you're watching from above but can never come back." They walked back to Ruby's room together. Through the window, a male nurse was bringing her lunch. Ruby ate mechanically, eyes downcast, answering his gentle questions in monosyllables. When he left, she returned to her position on the bed, knees up, rocking. Vera entered slowly, Dr. Patel beside her. Ruby's head snapped up, green eyes wide with fear. "Hello, Ruby," Vera said, her voice breaking. "I know who you are," Ruby replied, her voice distant, flat. "You're the lady from the basement, the one who hurt Daddy." "Ruby, I'm your mother." Ruby shook her head violently. "My mother is dead. Daddy told me she went to heaven when I was little." Ruby's eyes narrowed, studying Vera's face. "Are you an angel? Am I dead too? Is that why everything feels wrong?" Vera's knees nearly buckled. Dr. Patel steadied her, whispering to go slow. "I'm not dead, sweetheart, and I'm not an angel. I'm your mom, and I've been looking for you for 12 years. Every single day I've been looking. Daddy said you stopped loving me. That's why you went to heaven." Vera's heart shattered at the words. "That's not true. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second." Ruby fell silent, processing. Then, in a smaller voice, she asked, "When is Daddy coming back?" The question shattered what remained of Vera's heart. Dr. Patel stepped in, explaining gently that Ruby would be staying at the hospital for a while, that her daddy had to go away. Ruby's keening wail could be heard 3 rooms down. Later, after sedation, after Ruby finally slept, Dr. Patel walked Vera out. The prognosis was guarded, but not hopeless. Years of therapy lay ahead, possible regression, learning to exist in a world she'd been taught to fear. Trust would come slowly, if at all. Ruby might never fully recover the childhood stolen from her. She might always struggle with what was real and what had been Marcus's twisted programming. "But she's young," Dr. Patel said. "The brain is still plastic at 16, and she's physically healthy, thanks to his twisted care. There's hope." Hope, a small word for such an enormous journey. Vera returned the next day, and the next. She sat outside Ruby's room, sometimes allowed in for a few minutes. On the 4th day, Ruby asked a question about the world outside. On the 7th, she let Vera sit closer. On the 10th, when Vera held out her hand, Ruby stared at it for a long moment, before reaching out with one finger, touching briefly before pulling back. It was barely anything. A fingertip touch lasting less than a second. But it was everything. It was a beginning.